Chapter 4, Ancient Greece, 1900 to 133 BC. Section 1. Section 1, Early Civilizations in Greece. During the 3rd millennium BC, the island of Crete was home to the most advanced civilization in Europe. Although Minoan Crete was not Greek, it did have some influence on the first Greek state. The story of ancient Greek civilization begins when a group of Greek-speaking Indo-European people moved into Greece around 1900 BC. The Mycenaeans provided the inspiration for Homer's epics and paved the way for the political and cultural developments of Greece in the 1st millennium BC. The impact of geography. Geography played an important role in the development of Greek civilization. Compared with the land masses of Mesopotamia and Egypt, Greece occupies a small area. It consists of a mountainous peninsula and numerous islands that encompass about 50,000 square miles, about 129,500 square kilometers of territory, about the size of the state of Louisiana. The mountains and the sea played especially significant roles in the development of Greek history. Mountains. 2 peninsulas make up much of the Greek land mass. The Isthmus of Corinth connects the Peloponnese Peninsula to the mainland. About 80% of Greece is mountainous. Olympus is the highest peak in the Pindus Mountains, which divide the mainland. Much of Greece consists of small plains and river valleys surrounded by high mountain ranges from 8,000 to 10,000 feet, 2,438 to 3,048 meters high. These mountains isolated Greeks from one another, causing different Greek communities to develop their own ways of life. Over a period of time, these communities became fiercely independent. It is probable that the small size of these independent communities encouraged people to participate in political affairs. On the other hand, the rivalry between the communities led to warfare that devastated Greek society. Seas. The sea also influenced the evolution of Greek society. The Aegean, Mediterranean, and Ionian seas make up the eastern, southern, and western borders of Greece. Its location on the peninsula gives Greece a long sea coast, dotted by bays and inlets that provided many harbors. Although Greece is small, it has an 8,500-mile, 13,700-kilometer coastline. In fact, no part of the Greek mainland is more than 60 miles, 100 kilometers, from a body of water. The ancient Greeks also lived on a number of islands to the west, south, and east of the Greek mainland. Surrounded by water, it was no accident that the Greeks became seafarers. They sailed out into the Aegean Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Black Sea, making contact with the outside world. Later, they established several colonies that spread Greek civilization throughout the Mediterranean world. Minoans and Mycenaeans. By 2800 BC, a Bronze Age civilization had been established on the island of Crete. Called the Minoan civilization, it flourished from 2700 to 1450 BC. The Minoans were not Greek, but they did influence the peoples of the Greek mainland. Minoan civilization. Arthur Evans, the English archaeologist who first discovered the civilization, named it after Minos, the legendary king of Crete, because some of its structures were similar to the labyrinth that King Minos was said to have built. At the beginning of the 20th century, Evans discovered an enormous palace complex on Crete at Knossos. The remains of this complex revealed a rich culture, with Knossos at the center of a far-ranging sea empire based on trade. The ships of the Minoans took them to Egypt as well as southern Greece. There they traded finely crafted pottery and gold and silver jewelry from Crete for other goods. Trade also helped the Minoans improve the goods they produced. They drew inspiration from techniques and designs from objects from other lands. Although the Minoans built palaces on several sites in Crete, the palace at Knossos was the royal seat of the kings. This elaborate building included numerous private living rooms for the royal family and workshops for making decorated vases, ivory figurines, and jewelry. Even bathrooms, with elaborate drains, formed part of the complex. Rooms were decorated with brightly colored paintings showing sporting events and nature scenes. Storerooms held gigantic jars of oil, wine, and grain that were paid as taxes to the king. The centers of Minoan civilization on Crete suffered a sudden and catastrophic collapse around 1450 BC. Some historians believe that a tidal wave triggered by a powerful volcanic eruption on the island of Thera was responsible for the devastation. Most historians, however, believe that the destruction was the result of invasion by mainland Greeks, known as the Mycenaeans. Mycenae, the first Greek state. The term Mycenaean comes from Mycenae, a fortified site on the Greek mainland that was first discovered by the German archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann. Mycenae was one center in a Mycenaean Greek civilization that flourished between 1600 BC and 1100 BC. The Mycenaean Greeks were part of the Indo-European family of peoples who spread into Europe and Asia. One of these groups entered Greece around 1900 BC and gradually gained control of the Greek mainland. Mycenaean civilization, which reached its high point between 1400 BC and 1200 BC, was made up of powerful monarchies. Each resided in a fortified palace center. Like Mycenae, these centers were built on hills and surrounded by gigantic stone walls. The monarchies in these various centers of power probably formed a loose alliance of independent states. While the royal families lived within the walls of these complexes, the civilian populations lived scattered outside the walls. Among the noticeable features of these Mycenaean centers were the tombs where members of the royal families were buried. Known as tholos tombs, they were built into hillsides. An entryway led into a circular tomb chamber constructed of cut stone blocks in a domed shape that resembled a beehive. The Mycenaeans were, above all, a warrior people who prided themselves on their heroic deeds in battle. Mycenaean wall murals often show war and hunting scenes, the natural occupations of a warrior aristocracy. Archaeological evidence also indicates that the Mycenaean monarchies developed an extensive commercial network. Mycenaean pottery has been found throughout the Mediterranean area, in Syria and Egypt to the east, and Sicily and southern Italy to the west. However, some historians believe that the Mycenaeans, led by Mycenae itself, also spread outward militarily, conquering Crete and making it part of the Mycenaean world. Some of the Aegean islands also fell subject to Mycenaean control. The most famous of all their supposed military adventures is recounted in the poetry of Homer. According to Homer, Mycenaean Greeks, led by Agamemnon, king of Mycenae, sacked, plundered, the city of Troy on the northwestern coast of Asia Minor around 1250 BC. Did this event really occur? Ever since the excavations of Schliemann, begun in 1870, scholars have debated this question. See discussion of archaeological methods featured in Chapter 1. Many believe that Homer's account of the attack on Troy does have a basis in fact. By the late 13th century BC, Mycenaean Greece was showing signs of serious trouble. Mycenaean states fought one another, and major earthquakes caused widespread damage. In the 12th century BC, new waves of Greek-speaking invaders moved into Greece from the north. By 1100 BC, Mycenaean civilization had collapsed. Greeks in the Dark Age. After the collapse of Mycenaean civilization, Greece entered a difficult period in which the population declined and food production dropped. Historians call the period from approximately 1100 BC to 750 BC the Dark Age, because few records of what happened exist. Not until 1850 BC did farming revive. At the same time, the basis for a new Greece was forming. Changes of the Dark Age. During the Dark Age, many Greeks left the mainland and sailed across the Aegean Sea to various islands. Many went to the western shores of Asia Minor, a strip of territory that came to be called Ionia, or Ionian Greece, in modern-day Turkey. Two other major groups of Greeks settled in established parts of Greece. The Aeolian Greeks of northern and central Greece colonized the large island of Lesbos and the territory near the mainland. The Dorians established themselves in southwestern Greece, especially in the Peloponnese, as well as on some of the southern Aegean islands, including Crete. In addition to agriculture, there was a revival of some trade and economic activity during the Dark Age. Iron replaced bronze in weaponry, making weapons affordable for more people. Iron farming tools helped reverse the decline in food production. At some point in the 8th century BC, the Greeks adopted the Phoenician alphabet to give themselves a new system of writing. By reducing all words to a combination of 24 letters, both consonants and vowels, the Greeks made learning to read and write simpler. The work of Homer, one of the great poets of all time, appeared near the end of the Dark Age. Homer, poet of the Dark Age. The Iliad and the Odyssey were the first great epic poems of early Greece. An epic poem is a long poem that tells the deeds of a great hero. The Iliad and the Odyssey were based on stories that had been passed from generation to generation. Both poems are hundreds of pages long, but not because they tried to preserve an entire account of history, as earlier oral poets did. Instead, Homer focuses his imagination on the dramatic events of a few days of the Trojan War. Homer used stories of the Trojan War to compose the Iliad and the Odyssey. The war is caused by Paris, a prince of Troy. By kidnapping Helen, the wife of the king of the Greek state of Sparta, Paris outrages all the Greeks. Under the leadership of the Spartan king's brother, King Agamemnon, the Greeks attacked Troy. 10 years later, the Greeks devise a plan to take the city. They trick the Trojans by building a huge hollow wooden horse. The best Mycenaean soldiers hide inside the horse, while the rest board their ships and pretend to sail away. The joyful Trojans, thinking themselves victorious, bring the gift horse into the city. That night, the Greeks creep out of the horse, slaughter the Trojan men, enslave the women and children, and burn the city to the ground. The Iliad is not so much the story of the war itself, however, as it is the tale of the Greek hero Achilles and how the anger of Achilles led to disaster. The Odyssey recounts the journeys of one of the Greek heroes, Odysseus, after the fall of Troy and his ultimate return to his wife. It has long been considered Homer's other masterpiece. Some scholars believe that it was composed later than the Iliad. Homer proved to be of great value to later Greeks. He did not so much record history, he created it. The Greeks looked on the Iliad and the Odyssey as true history and as the works of one poet, Homer. These masterpieces gave the Greeks an ideal past with a cast of heroes. The epics came to be used as basic texts for the education of generations of Greek males. As one ancient Athenian stated, "My father was anxious to see me develop into a good man, and as a means to this end, he compelled me to memorize all of Homer." The values Homer taught were courage and honor. A hero strives for excellence, which the Greeks called arati. Arati is won in a struggle or contest. Through his willingness to fight, the hero protects his family and friends, preserves his own honor and that of his family, and earns his reputation. Homer gave to later generations of Greek males a model of heroism and honor. For example, in an exciting description of men marching to war, the Iliad taught students to be proud of their Greek heritage and the actions of their heroic ancestors.